Hello, accessible astrology community. How are you doing? So guess what? 2023 continues, and firstly, I just want to say to everyone, happy equinox. If you're into this sort of stuff. Now, at the end of the day, if you're into astrology, you kind of will have an understanding of the equinox, the solstices. So let's just quickly talk about it, because I happen to be speaking to you today on the equinox. And it also happens to be a particularly big week this week. I mean, I don't know how everyone's doing after last week. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we are really living in unprecedented times. So let's just quickly have a little review of last week. But also let's just, again, work out why people celebrate or acknowledge. Because astrologically speaking, it's the start of the new year. So you obviously have Gregorian time, you have Roman time, and all the various timelines that exist within culture. So going back to moon cycles, sun cycles, and then the measurement of time. Really, that's what all of this is about. But the equinox, why it's unique, is because it's equal day and equal night. That's what makes it unique. You might have got ill before the equinox or around the equinox, for example. The reason for that is if you're thinking of biorhythms, we're letting go of certain like toxins and things like that. We're going into this spring, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, going into the fall. It's all part of the same biorhythm cycle. So when we start to attune into the physical reality of the third dimension, then we start to tap into these opportunities, which are letting go, beginnings and endings. So it's quite deep, really, when you think of it from philosophical points of view. So today, it just so happened that chronologically, synchronistically, whatever, I happened to be talking to you on the equinox. And again, just going back to the start of the year, the new year happened. So from a Western perspective, there's obviously different New Years in different cultures, like the Chinese, for example, their New Year's in February, and that's very relevant in terms of astrology as well. And then we get now to the this particular timing of the equinox, and now we're really in, you could say, 2023. So we really have arrived now at 2023 with all the changes that are going on within culture, the world, or if you want to go deeper, affluence. So the celestial energies of the universe, the stars. So let's have a look at it. So for me, for my mundane or my individual experience of today, it happened to be, again, in a different location. Now, thankfully, it's familiar to me because this is now, I'm with the in-laws, basically, my mum and dad, Eugenia's mum and dad. And that's lovely because it's nice to have a home. It's nice to feel settled somewhere, or it's nice to be welcome somewhere, or to have family. So here we are, in it's just funny because literally every single Instagram that I've done this year has almost been in a different place. So again, it says something. And we're going to talk about Mars next week for next week's astrology. The fact that Mars will be going into Cancer. But wow, what a month, eh? And obviously you'll be getting affected by this individually, because how can you not? If you think about the Hermetic principles, the idea of as within, so without, as above, so below, all comes from that literature. If you look at the external world, it's pretty mad, isn't it? It's especially when you're looking at the idea of the banking system. So it's something we've been talking about for a while, and when you're looking at this, you can see that it's to do with that Saturn-Uranus square, which is now coming towards the end. We're literally coming towards the end. It's such a significant mundane, especially in financial astrology, aspect that you can't really ignore it. It's huge. So it's now at the tail end of it. We're coming to it's not in orb as such as what would describe when you're looking at transits. Usually you're looking at 5 degrees and things like that. But still, you can go further. The orb can get further. So we won't really be coming into anything what you call a 5-degree orb anymore. However, it's still going to be in resonance. It's affecting things. So everything that happened over the last 3 years, since 2020, but obviously more importantly for this Saturn-Uranus square, 2021 and 2022, is now sort of like following through, as it were. You know, it's completing, and that's why we've seen the banking stuff happen. I mean, Credit Suisse, in my mentorship, for example, we've been talking about that a lot last year, Credit Suisse, and guess what? You know, it's happening now. So, you know, again, it's all about being prepared. The bailout, people might not have predicted, but the shares of the bank, I can't remember what it's called now, the European bank, who bought Credit Suisse, is falling. So we're really coming into, you could say, 1929 energy now. We're really coming into the collapse of the old system. And it's interesting, isn't it, that, you know, Pluto is about to ingress into Aquarius next week. So the bailouts is what stopped the end of the Western world, really. That happened in 2008. And the fact that now we're seeing all that play out as a completion of Pluto into Aquarius. Obviously, Pluto is going to go back into Capricorn, as I've talked about before. And, you know, check out the launch kit, by the way, you know, for all these dates. Oh, let me just explain it as well as what's happening with... I need to sort of tell you about this, actually, before I get into the interpretations as well. Is that Tareck Adeeb, you know, is going to be its own brand. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, then really please join Tareck Adeeb at Instagram. Amy, I don't know if you can just post it in the chat now, but really we're trying to move everyone over to Tareck Adeeb who's interested in this kind of content. And as you'll see, once the website gets created and, you know, we start chatting and bringing more people on, it's going to evolve into a much more, you know, artistic, philosophical, holistic kind of brand, as Accessible Astrology is going to be much more focused on astrology and obviously Eugenia's method. So, you know, Eugenia's been taking a bit of time out, you know, getting various things going on for her, but she's really coming back into it now. So just to make that clear to everyone, you know, if these videos are going to start being on Tareck Adeeb. Amy's just posted it there, so you can follow that. If you do that, then you can still get this content. But, you know, obviously I'll, you know, still be doing astrology, accessible astrology. It's not like I won't be doing that, but it's just we're really trying to get definition of the brand. So that's what's happening at the moment. So just have to tell you that, have to get you to move over to that portal, as it were. Okay, so wow, isn't it mental and crazy? Mental means, by the way, my terminology of it is crazy, you know. So it's just very, very strange what's happening right now. So on the equinox today, the sun enters Aries. That's what defines the equinox, by the way. We're at the end of the cycle of Neptune, Pisces, and then now we're into Aries, so Mars. So there's a very sort of like fire element to it. There's a Martian energy to it. And if you're looking at spring, that's when we start to see flowers blossom. We start to see more sun if we're in the northern hemisphere. So now that's why we have the autumn equinox. And if you were looking at an ephemeris, you'd always know that, because you'd see the sun at 0 degrees Aries. Now, last week there was so much going on, you know, in terms of squares and conjunctions, and it was very Neptunian, i.e. it was very difficult to keep centered, you know, keep grounded. And that's because there was so much mutable energy. Now, with the sun coming into Aries, there's going to be a big shift now, especially now that, Saturn is in Pisces, and I'd be very interested to know how everyone's feeling about that. It was profound for me yesterday, because I was actually in what's called the Gaia sphere, which is, there's a TV station called Gaia. And I happened to be at the conference yesterday, and it was fascinating to me, because, like, you know, I've seen these esoteric or kind of quite out there, you could say, philosophies and people talking, and it was really interesting, you know, to be around those group of people. So, you know, for me, you know, that Pisces, or that kind of, again, dream realization, you know, thoughts. For example, there's a guy called Bashar who was there, who's a channeler. And I've been following him for a long, long time now. And to be honest, I wouldn't tell everyone that, really. But for me, I've always found his information really, really interesting. And it's really obvious that he talks about the science of the obvious, and how he talks about following your excitement and all these kind of things. And again, it's just so simple, you know, when we're operating within the law of attraction or following our highest excitement. And Saturn into Pisces is very much a case of that. You know, dreams coming true. the opportunity for us to finally manifest, like many years of thinking and thought. So, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it was like fascinating for me to actually see and be around the presence of that particular energy, who's a channeler. And then suddenly to witness the experience of it, not just on a YouTube, or even downloading some stuff, but to actually be in the presence of that. It was very much a Saturn and Pisces experience for me. Things that are in the ethereal, things that are dreamlike, or let's say, this Aquarius energy, technology, we're always like, if you were to meet me physically, for example, that would be very different from just seeing me on a computer screen, on this kind of thing. So it was interesting for me to finally see someone like Bashar or various people in this Gaia-sphere, all of us together, and it felt very magical. It felt very kind of wow, like, it makes more sense now, why I'm here, for example, living in America. It just kind of it was really interesting. So I hope you're having those experiences of Saturn and Pisces. I hope something's shifting, because if it is more paranoia or darker experiences you're having right now, it's really important to shift these blocks in your psychology. So, for example, anxiety as of compared to excitement is what he was talking about yesterday, and he was saying how, you can manifest a negative fear-based reality because the universe, God, let's say, Saturn is Pisces, will provide that for you. So it's very like physics. It's very, very obvious as well, how we can change our reality. And that's why the beauty of, let's say, finding limiting beliefs, or as within, so without, changing, let's say, the shadow, or going into the shadow to reveal different outcomes. And, it's just really interesting because you were saying, like, if you want to go into that fear spiral, then the universe will give you that. If you want to create different outcomes, like a following your highest excitement, then the universe will give you that. It's that obvious. But then the inquiry becomes about, what are these limiting beliefs? What's the things that's making you have this negative experience? And that's where Saturn into Pisces can be very illuminating. And obviously all the work that's been done before this date has been a lot of that. Let's say, for example, we've been giving you loads of information about healing. We've been giving you loads of information about what to do in financial crisis, like, as it's playing out now in real time. So we're in a new cycle now with the equinox, and it's up to us as custodians, participators of the world, and it's actually participators of the universe. If we've chosen to be here for a reason, if it's a miracle that we're here, then what are we doing now to serve or to live the life that we want? Now, it's hard when the world around us is playing out in this kind of, like, say, end of the old world scenario and the merging of the new. It's hard not to feel that, if we're sensitive, which, most people on this call right now are empaths. We're all sensitive people, and the sensitivity actually is a power. It gets discredited, through the idea of ruthlessness, materialism. But actually, kindness is a strength, but it gets labelled as a weakness. That's, again, the trick. When you give, and you give charity, you give because from your heart, and you give because you want to give, you always get 10 times back, but we're conned into believing, this is mine, like the precious, kind of thing. And, if again, if we can let go of that attachment, which is what, Uranus in Taurus is all about, is what Aquarius is all about, then we can accept our reality of this changing world. And then we start to see the magic in it. We start to see the potential in it. And it is a quantum time we're living in, i.e. quantum reality. There is potentials that are beyond our imagination. Or if we use our imagination, we can actually create far more at this time. So it's a really beautiful time to be alive, but dealing with the difficulty of a fear-based or third-dimensional construct compared to, let's say, a more fourth-dimensional, There's more air, i.e. fixed areas, Aquarius. There's more space. There's more opportunity, actually, in the imaginal to create far more, and this is where grace comes in, because if we can surrender, so Saturn into Pisces, surrender to the divine and accept where we are in this place right now, that everything is perfect. This is what I was saying last week. Then actually we can tap into the beauty of our timing and receive, let's say, the abundance that's our birthright, or tap into our amazing potential to create great art, or great things in the world right now. So anyway, going back to the sun entering Aries, we're now shifting into this Aries energy. And because we have eclipses coming in Aries now, this year, and we also have, other stuff, occurring, moving forward. So the South Node, the North Node will be going into Aries, the South Node going into Libra. Jupiter is in Aries right now. So we're really, really getting a huge boost, of what's coming, if you see what I mean. And, it's fascinating. Let's see what happens in the news this next week. It's a big deal, basically, what's happening every day right now. Again, I've been talking about this as well, like when we moved from Jupiter going into Taurus in May, that's why we called it the launch kit. When it squares Pluto, that's going to be a very, very interesting period. The eclipse that's happening in Aries on the 20th, 19th, 20th, I think, is also going to be very, very interesting to see what happens, i.e. the new world, the end of the old world. Credit Suisse, if it had gone bankrupt yesterday, whenever it was, that's it. That would have been the Black Swan event. And we're going to see potential multiple Black Swans occurring now. So instead, what they've done is they've resulted back to the old system, i.e. print more money. And look what's happened now. There's been a lack of confidence, and that's what all economics is all about. It's all about confidence. And now you can see those share prices. I can't remember the name of the European bank that's bailed Credit Suisse out, but guess what? That is starting to go down. So the reality is, the Fed or the Bank of England or whatever, IMF, whatever it is, they can't bail out all the banks. It can't happen. So that's what's been happening since 2008. And now we're seeing more of that happening, Silvergate, SVB. And there's been some interesting parliamentary debate, in America anyway. I think it's Janet Yellen, and she was put on the spot saying, well, that's not fair about these smaller banks that you're not bailing out. So this is it, ladies and gentlemen. We're in it now, and it's interesting to see Bitcoin has gone up 30% in this last week. So there is no getting out of the shift to the new monetary system, the digital economy. And it seems that Rishi Sunak and, the Fed now and all this sort of stuff are simply moving more and more towards that CBDC. So it's getting closer and closer now. Now, is it going to happen overnight? Probably not. There needs to be something really major for it to happen. So again, we are communicating now ahead of time. If you were in my mentorship last year, you would have known about Credit Suisse. It's happening now. The bailout is just going to keep exaggerating the bubble, so it's going to burst. People talking about a soft landing, I don't think that's going to happen. If anything, it's going to be more like a 1929 scenario. Now, does that mean that it's over? No, of course not. Again, this is why we're communicating now. We are ahead of time. We are positioning ourselves to be aware of this stuff. Again, it always comes down to the basics. Have you got food? Have you got water? Have you got shelter? Have you got community? Have you got enough money to pay the bills? All these sorts of things are the basics. If you've got the basics, then all of this macro stuff doesn't really matter anyway. A lot of people are not invested in all these sorts of things, so it doesn't make any difference to them, really. What's interesting from an artistic point of view, or from, again, using astrology or consciousness or this participation together, what's interesting about it is that we're seeing it happen. That's what's so fascinating to me, to actually see it all playing out. And that's where the cycles and the empiricist kind of like argument, looking at the cycles, analysing the data can be useful, for example, financial astrology, these sorts of things. So we're watching it happen, and we're about to see more happen. That's what we have to be aware of. Everyone who's subscribing to this channel, and remember, get on Tareck Adeeb at Instagram now. That's where a lot of my stuff is going to be. I'll still be doing stuff on accessible astrology. It's not like I'm not still going to be doing stuff, but I think Eugenie wants me to do more lectures, you see, inside the rising sign groups, whatever. She's the boss at the end of the day when it comes to accessible astrology. And for me, I'm going to be creating my own stuff. So jump over there if this is interesting to you. Okay, so let's have a look at this next week, right? So we went through what was a very intense last week. So I'm hoping that you're all doing okay. And again, this spinning plates, trying to keep positive, trying to keep it together is all relevant right now because it's easy to flip out. Like, for example, I was supposed to do something today. It didn't happen. I had too much going on. I couldn't do it. This Gaia-sphere thing that I went to yesterday, I couldn't attend the whole thing because I had too much going on. I had too many other things to go on. So that's okay. It's just is what it is. At least I'm showing up. At least we're communicating right now. And yeah, just that's cool. It's true. It does feel hard right now. Thank you for sharing that because you don't want to be isolated at this time. The whole world is seriously going through such change, and again, it's very hard to work out. I mean, look, the Ukraine war stuff hasn't stopped yet. It's just still there. The war energy is still there. Okay, and the old world is crumbling, and it's going to come to a point where it just radically collapsed. Like I say, in 2008, the only reason why it didn't collapse was because, basically it was Gordon Brown, the UK Prime Minister at the time, who pretty much rallied up the Western world, made a big deal with China, and it was like, let's just put a huge, plug in this sinking ship, and let's all agree to it and just keep printing money, and that's why inflation exists right now. I mean, inflation is one of the worst aspects of any economic system. So if inflation is there, your savings are going down, you're losing your pension, you can't buy as much. The knock-on effect of it is horrendous. Interest rates are the only way to maintain inflation. If that keeps going up, it's going to destroy so many small businesses. So, there isn't as much money, for a lot of people right now, and that's hard. And then the knock-on effect could be quite dramatic. So again, all of this information is there for us to be ahead of time, to be prepared, and then when opportunity comes, we'll be able to thrive, be able to fly. So that's why keep cool right now. It's a very, very, very turbulent time. Last week, all those squares and conjunctions and that nebulous energy and, Venus just, squaring Pluto before it went into Taurus and all that kind of stuff. It's hard, it's difficult, it's stressful, one day at a time, right? Okay, so obviously the big one is Pluto is about to ingress into Aquarius in 3 days. That is going to be fascinating. So obviously things have been really intense this month, and next week we're going to probably see more of it. How's it all going to play out? We don't know. So let's keep an open mind. And we just got to be wise. We've got to be relaxed. We've got to just know that there's a divine order to all of this. I mean, I was in a class this morning. We talked about divination and stuff in terms of astrology, and a lot of people believe that there's an orchestra or it's harmonics basically. So there's got to be a reason for Pluto coming into Aquarius. Bringing in the big MPC to start playing tunes. Whatever it may be. There's got to be a reason for it. Okay, so we've just got to relax, see how it plays out. Remember, if you've got the launch kit, that it's May. That is a really, really big deal. Obviously, what's happening now is the build-up to May. I'm seeing the eclipse in April now is going to be pretty intense, in April. I'm pretty sure of that. And then obviously there's another one after that, and then we get Jupiter moving into Taurus. So this is all part of that. Okay, so next week, if you're thinking about Aquarius and we're thinking about electromagnetic stress, we're thinking about technology, we're thinking about the acceleration, the speeding of technology, like, you know, like, I mean, ChatGPT 4 has now been released, for example. So how much of an impact is that going to have on the world is remarkable. I mean, look at the timing of it. You know, Pluto coming into Aquarius, right? So ChatGPT 4 is going to be a whole nother level of ChatGPT. I don't know if you've ever used it yet, but it is prolific, you know, considering what AI can do now, and that's just the start. So this next couple of months, how it's going to play out is going to be interesting. Because remember, if you're thinking about what's been happening, again, this fourth turning crisis that we're in right now, you know, 2017, 2016, Trump, Pluto return with regard to America. You know, you're seeing him in the news again, and you're seeing this idea of civil unrest, you know. So again, there's a lot of upset people in the world, you know, and, you know, the banking crisis, you know, unfortunately, this idea of refugees, you know, there was some interesting stuff that's been going on at the moment with that, you know, with certain, again, leadership people in significant, just to give you an example, there's a football player in England called Gary Lineker, you know, who was making statements about that, and he was a, you know, huge, like, celebrity sort of figure, and then, you know, he ended up having to leave the BBC, and that caused all sorts of dissension. So again, when you're seeing people at the top, you know, kind of like making political moves, and the effect that has on institutions, this is very much again to do with Pluto coming into Aquarius. So let's see what's going to happen next week. But yes, everyone who's posted just now saying how difficult it has been this last week, it's right. It's hard right now. Just simply because it's just so uncertain, and it's so unusual, and it's so kind of like destabilizing. It's hard to keep it together. Often a theme of the Saturn-Uranus square was cognitive dissonance. You know, it was denial, cognitive dissonance. So as that amps up, you know, as these frequencies, i.e. Pluto into Aquarius, becomes more accelerated, think of Pluto, it's destruction. You know, Pluto is transformation. So going into Aquarius, so again, looking back, Saturn, when it went into Aquarius in the end of 2020, and now that's in Pisces. Now Pluto's going into that exact 0 degree spot. What's that doing? What is Jupiter, Saturn that was leading the way? You know, this 800-year air cycle, and now Pluto's coming onto that point. What's that going to do? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But again, you know about it. That's the difference. Did you know about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in 2020? Did you know about Pluto going into Capricorn in 2008? Did you know about these things, okay? So the key is now, if we see the macro world playing out with these affluence, these energies of these celestial planets, then we'll be prepared, because we've seen it coming. We've seen it coming. You know, will Bitcoin go to 40K? You know, probably. Will it go back down? Maybe in May, probably, you know. So we've still got moments to get on the exponential wave, whether it's buying blockchain tech, whether it's, you know, buying NFTs, you know, because that's obviously going to be huge soon. You know, there's no doubt about that. We'll have our chance. So don't panic, you know, don't go into FOMO. You know, a lot of people might, you know, when I was talking about my financial astrology chat at the start of the year, you know, when Bitcoin was 16K and now it's 28, you know, it's easy to go into FOMO because you think, I missed out. And, you know, I think, you know, it is what it is. But if the bottom's in, the bottom's in, you know. Will it go back down to 20, 21? Probably, you know, it probably will. So there will be another opportunity. Will it go to 12 or 8? Doubt it. I doubt it now, unless there is some sort of, again, real worldwide crisis. If anything, the stock market, if it plunges, will bring down everything, unless there's a decoupling event, and then that's it. You know, Bitcoin's going to 100K. So it is a very strange time to be alive. We need to be wise. We need to relax. Just to say this, you know, if there's going to be huge crypto gains, it's likely it's going to be 2024, 2025. So don't panic. We're still in a, you know, kind of a bear market. Even if there's sort of like a run coming up for a bit and we've reached the bottom, don't worry about it. There's always these dips that come along because it's so volatile. And again, it's all speculative, so I don't want to be encouraging people to do stuff that they can't afford or that they're not aware of. You've got to do your own research. That's the key. It's just really interesting to see how it's playing out, especially when you're looking at astrology. Now, Mars is also entering Cancer on the 25th, so that's a huge relief in a lot of ways, because finally, Mars is coming out of this Gemini experience that we've been having. Really goes back till August, but significantly in September, October, when we got this Mars retrograde. For mutable signs, obviously, it's going to be a relief, but still, it's going to be interesting to observe what happens next. Mars into Cancer, it's going to be sensitive, potentially. It's going to be there's going to be more emotional stuff now, especially with Saturn in Pisces. But having said that, if we're in a place of surrender, if we're in a place of authenticity, which we've been trying to develop for so long, if we're in a place of sensitivity, i.e. feeling our way through all of this, then it could be quite a magical time, especially in terms of manifestation. If you are setting intentions and, coming back to the equinox today, what a great day to set an intention and to let go. Fortunately, it looks like I'm going back to England this summer, but I don't know when I'm going to be going back to Egypt now. So again, that ship seems to have sailed and it's gone now. I mean, it's always there for me, and I look forward to the days I really get involved in that culture, because it's my heritage, but also because there's so much there. Like all the speakers at this Gaiosphere yesterday were all talking about Egypt and the information there. So, I really want to be a part of that. But with this equinox, I've got to let go of what was. From my experience, my parents are gone, my lineage is now here, and it's just hard. But at the same time, it's always home, or there's always places to visit. Like going back to England in the summer, it's good for me simply because I can, pick up stuff that will get thrown away, because that's what happens when people die. That's the reality. These material things aren't here forever. So you've got to take advantage of it. But discernment is really what I'm trying to talk about here with Saturn into Pisces. We've got to discern what is good for us, what is bad for us. And because of Mars coming into Cancer now, it's going to be more sensitive. So if you are manifesting using the energy that creates worlds, setting intention right now, then it could be pretty an amazing time. However, if Mars into Cancer makes you feel really vulnerable, like, again, financially, really vulnerable, how do we manage that? How do we see this is just all part of a cycle? How can we relax into knowing that we're sovereign? And again, remember, gratitude is always the key. If you can eat, you have shelter, you have family, you have community, you have, you have something that you can do that you feel good about, like even if it's just going for a walk or whatever, some sort of creative pursuit, whatever it may be, you're doing pretty good. You're certainly not you're certainly not in a war country where bombs are coming over you. I mean, you've got to find gratitude. Got to really just relax if the emotions become overwhelming. Mars into Cancer can be a little bit, like I say, I don't know if it's in fall or detriment here. I'm not quite sure about that, but I can't remember now. But the idea is that, Mars is about war, or is about anger, or is about yang, going into a feminine aspect. It's about softness. So if anything, just relax. Go to water is one of the best ways we could also process if we're getting emotionally intense. Like, we talk about float tanks and things like that. Just have a bath or go by the river. I keep talking about it. Now, there's a few other things happening as well, which I'll talk about more next week. But, Mercury does conjunct Chiron. So again, the wound, the feeling of, again, if it's a new world that we're moving into and there's new experience, then how is that affecting you? Is it making you feel like, say, a shaman, right now, someone who's using magic, who's creating, through that experience? Or is it making you feel, I'm fucked, how am I going to pay the bills? You see, this is the difference. Or like, I've missed my opportunity, or whatever it may be. We want to move away from that. Remember, because you're signing up to this, and because you've hopefully, looked at the launch kit because you've been with us for so long. You know that the energy of this next 3 months is very significant. I've been talking about it all year now. When we get to May, it's the launch. April looks pretty intense now with the eclipse, I've got to say, with everything that's happening with this Credit Suisse. And, these are all the black swans that, I've been talking about in my mentorship. And now we are in it. We're actually in it now. So, is there going to be a liquidity crisis this summer? Probably wise to have a little bit of cash out of the bank, to have a little bit of cash. Are you putting things into other commodities like gold, silver, or whatever? It's important right now just to kind of just be smart, be wise. And remember, if you've got food, I'll say it again, you've got family, community, you've got shelter, you're doing okay. You don't have to let the macro destabilize you, go into a fear state. No, we've got to remember, if we're projecting fear, if we're acting in fear, then we're creating a fear matrix. We're not helping, we're not thriving, we're not serving. It's okay to feel it because, again, it's a sensitive time, Saturn in Pisces, Mars in Cancer. This Pluto in Aquarius, remember Pluto is a slower moving planet, so we're going to probably feel it as it moves into Aquarius, as Pluto moves into Aquarius. I think it could be quite interesting. In 2008, I certainly felt it. But again, it's going to go in there and it's going to come back. It's going to take a minute. I think next year and the year after, obviously when we get to 2026, Pluto really will be in Aquarius then, if you see what I mean. And the experience of this new world, this technological world, AI, all of it, robots, drones. There's more to talk about, but again, the next 3 years is a very, very seismic time. We've got Pluto in Aquarius. We've got Saturn, Neptune going into Aries. We've got Uranus going into Gemini. That's the bigger picture stuff. But for now, pay attention, and if you do get overwhelmed, i.e. electromagnetic is probably the bigger one, or you start to spin out, in terms of your mind, do what is required to ground and balance. You can turn the TV off, turn your phone off, go into nature, hug a tree, put your feet on the grass, go into a salt bath. These are all the elements that we can work with. Have a fire. Today I'd recommend having a fire. It's the equinox. Got to let go of the past. It's not an easy thing to do. We've got to accept where we are right now. We've chosen to be here for this Pluto in Aquarius, wherever you may be right now. Set an intention for what you want, because I really believe that when we get to 2028, we've got a magical world that we're moving into, 2032. It's just that we've got to be relevant, we've got to be aware, we've got to be healthy, we've got to be wise during this particular time. So self-care is crucial at this particular time, and try not to get too caught up in the macro. Call your mum and dad, it's a nice thing to do, go see your mum and dad, go see your family, get on the phone, go call your friends, know there's others like you, that's what you need to know. You don't want to be isolated at this time. Okay, so there's not really much more for me to say. I mean, Ceres does go into Virgo, the retrograde is back into Virgo, so again, having your health is really key right now, and having your nurturing is really key right now. Making sure that you feel grounded at this very changing time. Remember, everything is perfect. We're here exactly as we're meant to be, but it's our responsibility, this is the key now, to manifest the reality that we want. So if we're thinking positive, living in our excitement, then we can create more synchronicity, more abundance, more hope, more love. If we're operating within anxiety and fear, then we're creating more of that fear-based reality, which will limit us, create more ego, more fear, more lack, more loss. So we've got to correct it. If it means getting a Reiki treatment, getting a hypnotherapy treatment, getting an EFT treatment, whatever it may be, we've got to correct it quickly, because we don't want to be going down that path. Or simply just do something different, you know. Put on some nice music, you know, do something that makes you feel good, because that will help with this process. All right, well, I'll talk more about Mercury going into Jupiter, Mercury conjuncting Jupiter, which is just going to accelerate all of this next week when we get to that particular date. All right, so we're at the equinox. This is the start now of the astrological new year. I still believe the Chinese New Year will come into effect more in the summer, especially at the Venus retrograde. But for now, it's collapsing. You know, the old world is collapsing. What's going to happen with this new world emergence? Well, that's the unknown. So we've really got to be prepared now for a lot of change over this next couple of months. But I don't think it'll be permanent change until we get to 2025, 2026. One step forwards, two step back. It's that kind of thing. You know, there's going to be a lot going on. Right, I don't see any questions, but just to say this again, you know, we've got to promote this now, that if this is helpful, if this is something that resonates with you, then, you know, please go over to Tareck Adeeb Astrology. Tareck Adeeb. Amy, if you want to post it again, please, just so everybody who's in the room right now can sign up on my Instagram, and I'm going to start taking this content to Tareck Adeeb now, just simply because, like I said, Eugenia and her rising signs and her method, she wants to focus on that more in terms of accessible astrology. And yes, I'll be turning up for lectures and stuff and teaching in this platform. I think, well, you speak to Eugenia about all of that. She's got it all under control. But for me right now, I want you to take care of yourself as the key. Remember, when we get to 2028, 2032, we'll be operating in a completely different reality than where we are now in a lot of ways. And we want to be healthy and alive and participating with what's coming. We do not want to be so stressed right now and so upset that we don't make it, you know. We've got to protect our physiology, you know, we've got to protect our health. And the best thing you can do is to help others as well. So get on the phone, say a kind word, help that old person who might need some help, babysit for some of your friends if they need a babysitter right now. You know, there's so many nice things that we can all do to help each other, isn't there? All right, on that note, take care. Let's see how it all goes. Pluto into Aquarius. It's a whole new dawn coming now. And I really appreciate your time listening to this. And the best thing that's going to happen is that we're all going to be meeting at some point maybe soon. And even better, you sharing your gifts and abilities with the world. On that note, take care.